My brother's rehearsal dinner was supposed to be the happiest night of the year. The restaurant was beautiful. White tablecloths, candles everywhere, the kind of place where you instinctively lower your voice when you walk in. I sat at the far end of the table, between my aunt and nobody, watching my family laugh at stories I wasn't part of. That should have been my first warning. But I've been ignoring warnings from this family my whole life. My name is Maya. I'm 29 years old, and I work as a forensic accountant for a mid-sized firm in Austin, Texas. I find fraud for a living. I trace money through spreadsheets the way other people follow footprints in snow, carefully, patiently, until I know exactly where someone has been and what they took. It's precise work. It requires you to stay calm when everything in you wants to react. That skill saved my life, or at least it saved my savings account, my credit score, my apartment, and what was left of my dignity. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about my brother first. His name is Derek. He's 34, 5 years older than me, and he has always been, without question, without competition, my mother's favorite. I don't say that bitterly. It is simply a fact. The way the sky is blue and the highway out of Austin smells like cedar in the spring. Derek was the golden child. Derek was the one who got the car for his 16th birthday while I got a card with $40 in it. Derek was the one my mother called first with good news, and the one she defended first when bad news came. I had accepted this a long time ago. Acceptance is not the same as happiness, but it is quieter, and I had learned to prefer quiet. Derek was marrying a woman named Cassandra. She was fine, polished, carefully pleasant, the kind of person who remembers your coffee order once and then uses it forever as proof that she knows you. She worked in marketing. She smiled with all her teeth. I did not dislike her. I was simply not sure I had ever seen the real her, and I'd stopped trying. The wedding was in 3 weeks. The rehearsal dinner was a Friday night in late October at a steakhouse downtown that my mother had picked and my parents had paid for, which I only mentioned because it mattered later. I arrived on time. My mother hugged Derek first, then Cassandra, then looked past me to see if anyone more interesting had come in behind me. Maya, she said finally. A single word. Not unkind, exactly. Just insufficient. Hi, Mom. My father was at the bar, already 2 drinks in, already telling a story that made the bartender laugh politely. My father was a good-time man. He liked people, liked parties, liked the version of himself that existed at events like this, the version that existed at home on a Tuesday, paying bills. That one was harder to like. I loved him anyway. You love the whole person, or you love a fiction. I found my seat. The table was arranged so that Derek and Cassandra sat at the center with my parents flanking them, and the rest of us, Cassandra's sister, 2 cousins, my aunt, a college friend of Derek's, filled in around the edges. I was on the far end, which suited me fine. I had brought a good appetite and low expectations, which is honestly the best way to survive any family event. Dinner was pleasant for about 40 minutes. Then my aunt leaned over and said quietly, "Did you know Derek asked your mother for money last month?" I looked at her. My aunt is my father's sister. She has never fully trusted my mother's side of things, which has always made her, in my opinion, the sharpest person at any family table. "How much?" I asked. She lifted her wine glass. "Enough that your mother mentioned it to me, which means it was significant." I filed that away. I smiled and ate my steak and watched Derek across the table, laughing at something Cassandra's father said. He looked relaxed. He looked like a man without a problem in the world. After dinner, while people were finishing dessert and the men had drifted toward the bar, I went to use the restroom. I took a slightly longer route back, the one that passed the small private alcove near the hostess stand. I wasn't snooping. I genuinely just didn't want to walk back through the noise. But I heard my mother's voice, low and pressed thin the way it got when she was working something out. "It has to be her account," she was saying. "She's the only one with a clean credit history right now. Derek's is a mess from the business." A pause. "She'll never agree to it," said Derek's voice. "She doesn't have to agree to it. We just need her signature." I stood very still. The way you stand still when you're doing forensic work and you just found the line in the ledger that explains everything. "And if she finds out," Derek said. "She won't," my mother said. "She trusts us. That's her problem." I walked back to the table. I sat down. I finished my creme brulee. I smiled when Cassandra's mother made a toast. I clinked glasses with my aunt and did not tell her what I had just heard. I am, after all, a forensic accountant. I do not react to evidence. I collect it. Here's what I knew, and what I spent the next 72 hours verifying. Derek had started a small construction business 2 years earlier. I had known this. I had not known, because no one had told me that the business was failing. 3 contractors had filed complaints. 2 suppliers were owed money. Derek had taken out a personal loan to cover payroll in the spring and had not paid it back. His credit score, according to a source I am not going to name, was not a number you wanted to see attached to your name. My credit score, on the other hand, was 8A12. I had never missed a payment. I had no debt except a small car loan I was paying off ahead of schedule. I owned nothing jointly with anyone. I was, from a lender's perspective, a perfect cosigner. I understood immediately what they wanted. They wanted to use my name, my signature, to secure a loan for Derek's business. A real one, large enough to matter. And they had decided, apparently, that asking me was not worth the risk of me saying no. My mother's words, she trusts us. That's her problem. I sat with that sentence for a long time. I want to be clear about something. If my brother had come to me directly, honestly, with his hat in his hand, and said, Maya, I'm in trouble, I need help, I would have helped him. I'm not a cold person. I grew up in the same house as Derek, ate at the same table, watched the same Saturday morning cartoons. I remembered when he taught me to ride a bike in the church parking lot on a Sunday afternoon when he was 14 and I was 9, and he was briefly the best brother in the world. I would have helped him. But they had not asked me. They had decided I was a resource to be used, not a person to be consulted. That distinction matters to me. It matters the way the difference between borrowing and stealing matters. Technically similar, morally opposite. So I did not confront them. Not yet. I made a plan, the way I make all my plans, quietly, thoroughly, and with documentation. The following Monday, I placed a fraud alert on my credit file with all 3 bureaus. This is free to do, takes about 10 minutes, and means that any lender who receives a credit application in my name must call me directly to verify my identity before proceeding. The alert lasts 1 year and can be renewed. Then I called my bank and set up transaction alerts on my checking and savings accounts. Any transfer over $50 would send me a text message immediately. Then I contacted a family law attorney, not because I was sure I'd need one, but because I wanted to understand my options. She was matter-of-fact and thorough. She told me that if someone used my signature without my consent, it was forgery and fraud. She told me what I would need to prove it. She told me to keep records. I already had records. I am a forensic accountant. I have always had records. The wedding was 2.5 weeks away. I decided to wait. This is the part people always ask about when I tell this story. They want to know why I didn't just call my mother and confront her. Why I didn't warn Derek off. Why I didn't make a scene at the rehearsal dinner or the wedding or any point in between. The answer is because I wanted to know the full shape of it. I wanted to know exactly what they were planning, exactly how far they were willing to go before I responded. Reacting to half a picture leaves room for people to reframe things. I have seen this in my work. The moment you accuse someone before you have everything, they start building their defense, and some of that defense is surprisingly persuasive. I wanted everything. I wanted the whole picture. So I waited. The fraud alert did its job on a Wednesday afternoon, 11 days before the wedding. I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed. I stepped out and answered, "Is this Maya?" A man's voice, formal and professionally neutral. "I'm calling from First Alliance Lending. We received a cosigner application this morning, and our fraud alert protocol requires me to verify your identity before we proceed." I did not submit or authorize any cosigner application, I said. A pause. I see. And are you aware that an application was submitted this morning listing you as cosigner on a business loan for Derek's company? I was not aware, I said, and I did not authorize it. I would like you to flag this application as unauthorized and preserve all documentation. Another pause, longer this time. Of course. Can I ask, do you have reason to believe your identity has been used without consent? I do, I said. I will be filing a police report. I went back into the meeting. I took notes. I did my job for the rest of the day. On my lunch break, I drove to the police station and filed a report for identity theft and fraudulent use of signature. The officer I spoke to was thorough and kind. She told me it would be investigated. She told me to document everything. I already had everything documented. That evening, I called my attorney. She told me what came next. The lender would preserve their records. The police report would initiate a formal investigation, and I should not contact my mother or Derek in a way that could be construed as interfering with the investigation. I told her I understood. I told her I had one more question. The wedding is in 11 days, I said. Do I still go? She thought about it. That's a personal decision, she said, but I'd suggest you keep your life looking as normal as possible until the process is further along. I went to the wedding. I want to describe something to you. The experience of sitting in a church pew watching your brother get married while knowing what you know. The flowers were white and deep red. The music was a string quartet. Derek cried when he saw Cassandra come down the aisle, and the tears were real, I could tell. And for a moment, I felt something bend in me, some old grief for what this family might have been if the people in it had been different. My mother sat in the front row in a pale blue dress. She looked radiant. She had not called me all week, which I had noted, but which she would have said was because she was busy with wedding preparations. She did not know, as far as I could tell, that the loan application had been flagged. She did not know about the police report. She did not know that the lender had preserved records that included a scanned copy of what was supposedly my signature, a signature that looked close but not exact. The kind of close that only matters when no one is checking. Someone had been checking. At the reception, my mother found me at the cocktail hour and hugged me and said the flowers were beautiful and wasn't Cassandra's dress just stunning. I said yes to both. I had a glass of white wine. I took pictures with my cousins. I danced once, with my aunt, to a song I didn't recognize, and she leaned close to my ear and said, "You're doing something. I can tell." "I'm just dancing," I said. She laughed. She knew me better than that. Here is what happened over the next 3 weeks, in the order it happened. The police investigation moved faster than I expected. Because the lender cooperated fully, and because the paper trail was not complicated. Derek had submitted the application himself, with a forged copy of my signature, and my mother had been CE'd on the email thread, something they apparently did not think to clean up, or did not believe anyone would ever see. Derek was contacted by investigators first. I do not know exactly what he said in that conversation because I was not present, but I know that by the end of it, he had hired an attorney and stopped communicating with my mother through anything but a separate phone. My mother was contacted 3 days later. She called me before she called anyone else. I let it go to voicemail. The message was 47 seconds long and covered a range of emotions, from outrage to grief to a version of explanation that did not quite reach apology. She said she'd only been trying to help Derek. She said the loan was going to be paid back before I ever knew about it. She said she didn't think I'd miss it. As though a co-signed loan is a thing you can misplace. I saved the voicemail. My attorney has a copy. Derek called 2 days after that. His message was shorter and included the word sorry 3 times, which would have meant more if I had not known that his attorney had likely suggested making documented attempts at reconciliation. I saved that message too. My father called on a Sunday morning. He did not leave a message, which was, I thought, the most honest response of the 3. I did not call any of them back. Not then. I was not ready, and I had been advised not to, and honestly, I needed to sit with it. I needed to stop being the person who reacted too fast, who forgave too easily, who allowed the fact of being family to stand in for the much harder work of actually being treated well by family. I took some time for myself. I rearranged my living room. I went to a farmer's market on a Saturday and bought too many tomatoes. I started running again, not far, not fast, just enough to feel my own body doing something it chose to do. I felt in a way I hadn't felt in years, like I was living inside my own life. 2 months later, I met with my parents and Derek at a mediator's office. My attorney's suggestion, a neutral space, a structured format. Derek looked like he had not been sleeping. My mother wore the same pale blue from the wedding, which I think was intentional, a callback to a happier moment. My father held his hands in his lap and looked at the table. The mediator was excellent. She did not let anyone interrupt. She did not allow the conversation to slide into family history or old grievances. She kept it focused. What happened? What the consequences were, and what, if any, path forward existed. Derek said he was sorry. This time it sounded like he meant it, or at least like he understood the weight of what he had done. He said the business was being dissolved. That decision had been made before any of this, actually, which made the loan application more desperate and more senseless in retrospect. He said he had been too ashamed to ask for help directly and had convinced himself that if the loan was repaid before I found out, it wouldn't count as a real betrayal. I let him finish. Then I said, The intention to repay it doesn't change what you did to get it. He nodded. He knew. My mother was harder. She did not say she was wrong exactly. She said she understood why I was upset, which is the version of apology that keeps the apologizer comfortable. She said, family should protect family. She said she would have done anything for Derek. I looked at her for a long moment. I know, I said. That's actually the problem. I did not yell. I did not cry. I had a list of what I needed from them going forward. Transparency, no joint financial anything without my explicit written consent, and a formal acknowledgement, documented, signed, that the loan application had been submitted without my knowledge or permission. The acknowledgement was for the record. My attorney had recommended it. They signed it, all three of them. I drove home alone afterward and sat in my car in the parking garage for a few minutes before going upstairs. I was not happy exactly. Vindication is a complicated feeling. It is not the same as joy. It is more like the end of a held breath. Relief, mostly. And underneath the relief, a sadness for what you had to go through to get to the exhale. But I was okay. I was more than okay. I am telling you this story because I want you to understand something about the particular kind of hurt that comes from inside a family. It is not like other hurts. It is layered in a way that outside relationships are not, tangled up with memory and love and the long history of people who have known you since before you knew yourself. It is possible to love someone and also acknowledge that they have caused you harm. It is possible to want a relationship with your family and also refuse to be treated like a line item in someone else's financial plan. My mother thinks that loving Derek the way she did, fiercely, partially, without reservation, is the same as being a good mother. I have thought about this a lot. I have decided that she is wrong, but that she may never fully understand why, and that I cannot make her understand it. What I can do is live my life in a way that doesn't leave room for that kind of damage. I still talk to my parents. It is different now, more careful, more boundaried, less warm in the easy way it used to be warm, but more honest, in a way that I think matters more. My father has surprised me. He apologized, separately and unprompted, in a phone call one evening that lasted almost an hour. He said he should have stopped it when he found out. He said he was ashamed of himself. I believed him. Derek and I are not close. We may not ever be close again. We exchanged texts on holidays and birthdays. I went to Cassandra's baby shower 6 months ago and held the gift I had wrapped carefully and smiled genuinely for the photos. I do not know what the future of that relationship looks like. I am trying to leave space for it to become something real, if it chooses to. My credit score is still 812. My apartment is mine. My savings are mine. And my savings are mine. And my signature, my name, belongs to no one but me. If you are watching this and you recognize any part of this story in your own family, I want you to know something. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to wait until you have the full picture. You are allowed to love someone and still hold them accountable for what they did. Those things are not contradictions. They are the work of being a whole person in an imperfect family. You are not the problem because you refuse to be used, and the people who see your trust as a weakness have already told you everything you need to know about how much they value it. If any part of this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And drop in the comments, have you ever been in a situation where staying quiet and waiting was the right move? I want to know. I read every single one. Take care of yourself. I'll see you next time.